Yeah, right. Okay. Oh my gosh, we're here. What a whirlwind. I was running around this convention center for 45 minutes trying to find this, but I'm so excited to be here with you all and so excited to be doing this panel with you.
We're so excited to be here.
So fun.
I'm Whitney Port. I am the host of With Wit, and I'm so excited just to welcome you to the Future of Women's Media panel. Obviously, podcasting has shaped our industry so much, and it has changed the way that women are having conversations and that women are learning things about themselves and getting empowered more than anywhere else. So I thought it would be so interesting to dig into how podcasting really grows community. And as we all know, the way that women have consumed media has changed drastically over the years. For so long, we were turning to traditional media, magazines, newspapers. Now we're listening to podcasts. We're getting it on social. It's very overwhelming. There's so much out there. So for us, it's all about finding the people who we trust and who we want to listen to and who is fostering community. And these three ladies are three that are doing it so beautifully. So I'd love to first introduce Sami Spalter. She's one of the hosts of the Transform podcast, which explores personal wellness and self-growth. Then we have Dr. Aliabadi over here, otherwise known as Dr. A. She and Mary Alice Haney are the co-hosts of the SheMD podcast, and they are working to democratize access to women's health and just to all women's health information and make sure that we are, like I said, as empowered as possible and know everything that we need to know. So let's get into it. Okay, sorry, I can be long-winded. All right, so podcasting has obviously, like I said, transformed the way that women are consuming media, and it's offering much deeper conversations than we ever have had before. How have you seen, and any of you can take this first, but how have you seen podcasting really reshape the way that women are engaging with content, and what makes it just such a powerful medium for storytelling?
I love this question so much because I just started my podcast alongside my co-founder and co-host Sami Clark a year and 2 months. So we're fresh. And before that, I was such a consumer. I listened to every podcast. Mm-hmm. And the reason I loved it was because it was so raw. It was so real. People were down to get so vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And when you think about opening a magazine these days, it's like perfect. It's perfection. It's all aesthetic. It's just traditional editorial. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the last time I opened a magazine, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And you listen to a podcast, and even really what I've tried to empower myself to do as a host is to go there and to be as vulnerable as possible. And I have found so much passion and purpose in what I do when I do go there. Like, as soon as I can feel that inch coming up of like, ooh, it's gonna get spicy, this is gonna get really intimate, and this is gonna be a really deep share, and I say it and really share from the depths of my heart, that's where the real connection lies. And I think with the audio landscape and just podcasting in this form of media, it allows for that real intimate connection that we're all craving.
Completely.
So we started the podcast, same thing, we're new, we're a year old. I came from traditional media. I was the West Coast editor for GQ, Allure, Marie Claire. I'm probably the last person in the world that still reads a magazine. I love it on the airplane and I take it with me. But as somebody that's sort of seen, I'm way older than you. I know I don't look like it, but I'm way older than you. No. I've seen it for 30 years, and Whitney and I have talked about this being at Condé Nast, and
yes.
I've seen how Vogue was really the voice, or GQ was the voice for men, and then my career went into television, and then when we started the podcast, it was really because I met this incredible woman next to me, and our goal was to get her information into the lives and ears of every woman. But I didn't really understand how transformative it was. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get it out there, and we shoot it like we have a lot of video. We shoot it like a talk show, put it on YouTube, and because there are so many incredible celebrity women on our podcast talking about their vulnerability, exactly, they never talk about their personal life, and then they're talking about these very intimate things with the goal to make women their own health advocate. I think it's just been an incredible journey, and it's so, when I think about starting this podcast, same thing. I'm listening to Peter Attia. I'm listening to the Huberman Lab. I was listening to all of these incredible podcasts, but they were never talking about women.
Right.
Once in a while.
Right.
So we wanted to change the world for women's health and to help them become their own health advocate. So I think we're also changing an industry
Completely.
that's broken, and you're changing it. And when you hear Whitney's episode on our podcast,
I can't
it
wait.
is
I'm a
so
mess.
transformative. We were all crying, and then we have this incredible fertility expert giving women exactly what they need to do if they're having fertility issues, and she's explaining why, so that a woman can take that information into her own doctor's office.
Completely.
So I think that what we've done we're not only entertaining and giving great conversations, we're really changing the world for women's health, and that was the goal for us.
Completely.
And
I cannot wait to hear that podcast.
it is
That's just
unbelievable. It's one of our favorite episodes.
I can't believe it, because I remember being so flustered, but tears were just streaming down my face, because obviously fertility is something that was one of the first vulnerable topics that I talked about on my podcast. It was really the first time that I had shared anything very secret. I came from the hills. I came from the city, being on traditional media where they weren't really diving deep into my life. It was very, very surface. And so after the show was over, I remember I got pregnant. I started feeling like total crap, like hating how I felt, what my body was doing, so scared, so anxious. And I remember at the time my husband, who was a producer, was like, you should really talk about this. I promise, if you're feeling this way, there are other women out there feeling the same. And so we decided to film one episode, and I didn't know what I was gonna do with it, but he edited it, and I remember watching it and crying, and I put it out there, and that was the first time I realized how important verbal, vulnerable diaries are for connecting women. It was the first time I actually felt a connection with the people who had been watching me for years. For so long, there was like just this distance, like who are they? They don't really know me. And I actually felt connected. So I'm curious for you guys, what are kind of the specific conversations or the specific topics within your podcast that you feel like women are really yearning for and want to talk about?
I think the doctor should
Yes.
step in. And if you guys don't know Dr. Thais Aliabadi, you're gonna.
Oh yeah, Dr. A, I mean, had I met her 10 years ago, I probably would have had 5 children by now, so.
And I'm allowed to say this because it's public, but she delivered the Bieber baby. She's the Kardashians' doctor. She helped them through everything. She's she's a lot of different people's doctor. So anyway, you're gonna if you go on our podcast, you'll see these incredible women come on our podcast and talk about this. So anyway.
First of all, thanks for having me. For me, I've been in women's health for 30 years. I've been in private practice as an OBGYN for 24 years. And one thing I realized very quickly in my practice was that women get dismissed. Their symptoms get dismissed. 50% of women, when they leave their OBGYN office, they feel like their symptoms were dismissed and the doctor did not take them seriously. As women, every time we complain, they tell us it's in our head, we're anxious, we're PMSing, we're exaggerating, we're weak, where the opposite is actually true. We're the smartest people on this planet. We're so in tune with our body. And when we think something's wrong, almost always something is wrong. So I'm here to say that, we started this GMD podcast because I knew there was a lack of information. The only way as a woman to, in order to navigate the healthcare system in this country and around the world, you have to be your own health advocate. And there's no other way around it. And in order to be your own health advocate, you need to be educated on that topic before you go to your doctor's office. If you think you're going to go to your doctor's office and everything they tell you is absolutely true, then you're making a huge mistake. So what I would say, especially right now with all the podcasts available, with artificial intelligence, if, for example, you have painful periods, that's not normal. If you're staying home, if you're skipping work, if you're changing your social plans because of painful periods, that's not normal. I just want to quickly go over this because I have the mic and I have a room full of women. 10% of women on this planet have endometriosis, and it's one of the top causes of infertility, and one of the most common symptoms of it is pelvic pain and painful periods. Majority of these patients never get diagnosed. It takes doctors 9 to 11 years to diagnose these patients. By the time they diagnose them, they either don't have eggs or the quality of the eggs is gone. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, another top cause of infertility. These are patients with irregular period. They gain weight, they can't lose their weight. They have acne, they end up having an eating disorder. They end up in eating disorder centers, and their underlying condition is PCOS. 75 to 90% of these patients are never, ever diagnosed. I want you to understand that if men have conditions that would affect their sperm count, sperm quality, would give them pelvic pain, they would stay at home, and majority of them would not get diagnosed. Can you even imagine that world? That would never happen, but it happens to women every single day. Having said all this, we started this podcast, SheMD podcast, so we can arm women with all the information they need. If you listen to all the episodes, you are going to have a little MD in front of your name by the time you go to that doctor's office, and you'll be ready to advocate for yourself. So that's where I see the power of a podcast.
Mm-hmm, completely. And Sami, for you, what have been some of the most meaningful conversations and the content that you feel where you're really connecting with your audience?
So it's interesting. My journey, I've actually been behind the scenes for most of my career. And finally giving myself the permission to start speaking about my journey has been so powerful, not only for me, but hearing so much from my community of how many people can relate. And I was overweight my entire life, truly. Like, I was that kid in 5th grade that was getting made fun of through middle school, high school, you name it. And I never thought I would be sitting in this chair today, 85 pounds lighter, feeling like my best self. The way I look is one thing, but the way I feel, y'all, you can't put a name on it. It is just the greatest gift to be at home in your own body and to have experts that allow you to feel at home in your own body. And I'm no expert at anything other than living my best life. So I feel like with Transform, it's very friend to friend of me sharing from my heart, look, this is what worked for me. I'm not here to give you your blueprint, but I'm here to help give you the permission that I gave myself and hopefully that inspiration. Weight loss is definitely a huge pillar of my life, but it's transformed so much of my life. I really am open about my grief journey, which I know, we all lose someone in this life.
At some point. Yeah.
It's the human experience. And for so long, I remember when my mom died, I went on Spotify and I'm like, grief. Like, I tried to find an episode of someone sharing their grief journey and I couldn't find one. And it was really uncomfortable because everyone around me didn't really know how to comfort me in such trauma. So that was something I started to lean into and share. And the fact that I can now be someone that someone goes to in that part of their life too was something I never really thought of. Completely. But just by, again, giving myself that permission to be vulnerable, it opens up such a depth of a way that we are all able to connect.
Oh, completely.
I don't really know what I was doing before this. Like, what was my life before I started sharing my secrets? I don't know.
Completely. For me, they feel like such cathartic vent sessions. Afterwards, I feel like I have not only learned so much about myself, but just like released it all. And it feels so, so good to put it out there. And obviously sometimes I get nervous. I'm like, was that verbal diarrhea, or is anybody gonna get anything from this? But what's sometimes challenging for me is staying on top of the algorithms and staying on top of new people finding me and how to continue to grow and engage. How would you say you guys are making sure that you're ensuring your audience is growing and that you're reaching new audiences?
So I'm going to answer that really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah.
And it's a science. And I have a great sister over here who is helping us, and it's more analytic than I am. But really, I look at the analytics every single day.
You do.
And I look at YouTube because our YouTube audience is so big because visually we are a visual podcast. And I look at the analytics for listening. But I will tell you that at the end of the day, if you're speaking from your heart and you're like every single one of us at this table, and it's your purpose. This is our life purpose. This is your life purpose. This is your life purpose. The audience comes and you find them. But when you're new, we're new. We didn't know what we were doing when we started this thing. I was like, what is a podcast? Because again, I'm old. What is a podcast and how do I mean, social media is not my thing. I'm like, my kids are like, you're so cringy, Mom. Like, don't say that on the podcast. But I think that your audience finds you.
Yes.
And it's moments like this, these small moments where we can connect with women and help them. But it is a business and it's a science and we're creative, all of us. You're more business. You know, I'm a bit business, but I'm way more creative. I think finding a good team and a good partner that is what they can do. It's always like, what's your superpower and what can you do that no one else does? Her superpower is teaching.
Right.
No one else can do what Dr. A does. I've never met anybody else in the world. Your superpower is you've used your platform a long time and you just shared openly whether it was on the hills or what you're doing. And your superpower is you are just a light in the world and you come out and you started something in the middle of COVID that helped change women's lives when they had no hope and they couldn't work out and all of these things. So I think it's really being clear about what you're trying to do.
Completely.
And really understanding, you know, who you're trying to help in that way, and your audience will find you.
Completely.
When I think about a podcast, I think it's the opposite of clickbait if you're doing it right. And I think every other form of media is kind of like, let's get the clickbait. Like, how are we going to get people in? And the question I always ask myself before I record something or after I record something, there's actually two questions. One, did that fill my cup? And you know when something fills your cup and you know when something drains your cup. And then two, does that feel authentic to me? Forget what everyone else is doing. We are individuals in this world and we have our own permission to tell the story that we're here to share. And not everything that everyone's doing is going to feel authentic to you. So just because, you know, what's working for Call Her Daddy, which is clearly working, that's probably not my shtick, right? Like if I start running that way on my podcast, it's not going to feel authentic to me, but I can honor her and obsess over everything that she does. So you really need to trust yourself and ask yourself, okay, is this filling my cup? And does this feel authentic to who I am and how I'm serving my community?
Completely. I think it's so important in this whole industry to really stay in your lane. And that's not to say not to be experimental and try new things, but it's just so important to know that there's only one you, and that's the special sauce, and to try not to compare yourself to the benchmarks of everybody else. So there's so many podcasts out there. It feels like they're becoming full-fledged brands. Like you just mentioned, Call Her Daddy and Unwell. And there's a lot of pressure, it feels like, on us now to become brands within just having a podcast, where sometimes we're like, we just want to have these organic conversations and enjoy it. But I know with Ovi, you're turning your podcast into making a product that is so necessary. So can you talk about a little bit of that process? Because I know it's been so meaningful to you.
So for me, it's a little bit different because as a physician, I didn't want to do anything else to make money.
Right.
So I was comfortable with my practice. But what the podcast has done for me was the reach that I have to women around the world. And my passion has always been to change women's health because I'm not happy with where we are right now and how women get treated at doctors' offices. It's actually really upsetting. If you spend a day with me in my office, you're going to go home with a broken heart. of what women go through. But unfortunately, you don't know what I know, because you go to your doctor and you go home, and we talked about this, like to this day, women say, I'm going for my pap smear. Please don't refer to a GYN visit as a pap smear. Pap smear is one item on the 50 different items that need to be checked. So for me to have that reach, and PCOS has been my passion, polycystic ovarian syndrome, we talked about it, affects 15% of women in this room have it, and they don't know that they have it. And it's one of the top causes of infertility. So I'm using SheMD as a platform, and we started ovii.com, which is a PCOS platform, and I have an assessment test on it that any woman can go and answer 10 or 12 questions, and will tell you whether or not you have the likelihood of having PCOS or not. And if they do, we created this amazing supplement that I've given my patients for years separately, and we combined it with the smartest scientists on the planet. So to make a long story short is I've used my platform to reach out to these PCOS patients out there, educate them, and because I know access is an issue, 46% of counties in America do not have access to OBGYN. Imagine that. That's almost half of the counties. So already these patients don't have access, but even when they have access, they're really not getting the care they need. They're not getting diagnosed. So this is a platform, at least for PCOS, to help them, not diagnose, but tell them whether or not they have the likelihood of having PCOS and have a solution for them. And once I'm done with this, I want to start hitting all different medical conditions.
Yeah.
I want to make sure every woman knows her lifetime risk of breast cancer, which we did that with Olivia Munn.
She saved Olivia Munn's life, by the way. So I don't know if you guys know that,
but I pay her to say that.
No, she doesn't.
So breast cancer, I think out of curiosity, raise your hand if you know your lifetime risk of breast cancer.
Okay, I didn't either, so I'm not gonna get mad at y'all, but literally go on shemdpodcast.com for free.
That will be life-changing. 1 out of 8, 12.5% of all the women in this room will get breast cancer. 85% don't have it in their family. So you have to know your lifetime risk of breast cancer. But my point is, I'm using this platform to teach these big pillars in women's health, from fertility, which has PCOS, endometriosis, to breast cancer, to STDs. And this way we can arm all these women. So next time I'm here and I say, who knows their lifetime risk, I want every single hand to go up. So that's how I'm using this platform, and it's been magical for me.
Yeah.
It's like a dream come true.
It's so amazing. I know, to be able to have your knowledge, but to share it, because for us, it's very frustrating. It feels like it's so dependent on the doctor that we go to. And even if you have the information, sometimes it feels like they always know better, even though they don't. So it's just so powerful to hear and to understand that we really know our bodies best, first and foremost, before any doctor. Sami, your platform is just amazing. I recently had Sami on my podcast, and if you haven't listened to that, you must. Sami is just such a light. And I know that you met Sami on
Sami and Sami co-founders.
Sami from Form. I know that you had met her through actually using her whole workout experience. So tell me about that process and how you guys launched the business and then have turned it into this community.
Yeah, Sami and I's love story is one of my favorites, other than my love story with my husband Andrew in the front row,
So
my
cute.
work wife. But truly, I mean, when I was on my weight loss journey and my wellness journey, y'all, I started working out by going to a CrossFit gym that was on my block just because it was on my block, not because I was a CrossFit girly. I just needed the proximity. And oh my gosh, it was the most intense year of my life when it came to working out, but I had to try other things after that. So it was a quick YouTube search. I found Sami Clark's 10-minute abs and started doing it every single day. It's the one where she's in the pink set. I'm sure most of us in this room have either tried it or have a friend who's done it. And what was funny and how this universe works is my now husband, who was at the time my boyfriend, went to middle school with Sami Clark's then boyfriend, who's now her husband, JT. And the boys said, we need to get the Samis together. Come to find out, we were living half a mile apart in Los Angeles, went for one walk around our neighborhood, and I'm just letting her know how much one YouTube video saved my life in the fact that movement can be something that is a privilege. It's not a punishment. It's something that we can look forward to and not dread. And that really changed my mindset around that I get to move my body. And from there, I mean, it was during the pandemic, I was her #1 consumer. I'm like, we need to build something. Please allow my business brain to have at it. And she had already created this beautiful community that also wanted the same gift that I did. So we got started and we launched Form in August of 2021. And then now have Transform, which we launched last January. And I think what's been really beautiful with launching Transform is it's allowed for this 360 conversation with the brand. And when we were thinking about launching a podcast, the only reason we said yes was because of you guys and because we wanted to continue the conversation with our community and really bring you guys into the room. It's really fun when we sit down to record, talk about something that fills my cup. I'm talking to my best friend about something that's heavy on my heart right now from a direct question from one of you. And the fact that we're all transforming side by side, hand in hand as women, it's a gift and it's something that we get to do together. And it's given me so much more purpose and passion to everything that I thought I had to go through, right? When things happen to us in life, it's almost like, why me? Why is this happening to me? But now that I share about it, it actually has shown me why this is happening for me and the gifts that I need to share.
Completely. So what do you think that traditional media can learn from this new space of podcasting and women's conversations?
I mean, there's so much to learn. I think everything's changing so quickly.
Yeah.
And you know, what my teenagers are consuming is so different than what I'm consuming. And it's just, you know, you have to kind of keep up with this movement that's happening. And I think it's, again, I'm just going to go back to the why.
Right.
I think that traditional media sometimes looks at only the bottom line and how, you know, and I saw that happen in magazines and it became, you know, like, okay, models were on the cover of Vogue and then the business changed. Anna Wintour put celebrities on the covers and that started, and then it became the brands were paying the actresses to wear the clothes, and then the Oscars, I mean, I don't know if you all know that, but every actress is paid to wear everything that she does, and it's all about that. I think with what I'm getting from every one of us on this stage is that, you know, this is my second mountain. I've had 7 careers, and I brought everything I learned to this place in my life. Same thing with you, your wellness journey. Whitney, I mean, you talking about your fertility journeys, you having your medical, you know, knowledge to everyone. I think traditional media can learn from us that it really is the why, and the why has to be very clear. And if the why is clear and it's for other people, and you don't think about, if you chase the money, you're not going to get there.
It's so true.
And that's new. I think it used to be, it was more about that, and now
Growing
it's more
small.
about us and
Completely.
what we're trying to accomplish.
And I just want to add something. I can't agree with you more. I think we all need to have a purpose in life, and almost all of these podcasts right now are trying to make this world a better place. Reading a magazine doesn't make this world a better place, but podcasts are making this world a better place.
That's so
and
true.
that's why we're all drawn to it, right?
It's so true. It's the quality of it, not the quantity or how much you're putting out there, but the quality of each conversation that's so valuable.
When I think about myself and doing this,
Yeah.
it's funny. I feel like everyone's been talking about imposter syndrome recently.
So much of it.
And I hear it's such a buzzy thing, and I'm like, okay, interesting. I'm this very real, relatable, normal girl who now has a platform. And a magazine doesn't really do that. And not only is it a platform, but it's a long form way that I get to share my day to day.
Completely.
And it's a beautiful thing. Like, I can't put that into a TikTok. I can't put that into a reel on Instagram, but I can record an episode where you just get to hear what I'm going through. And hopefully that gives you the path of feeling a bit more seen too.
Completely. I think in this world, we can all feel very like isolated and alone with how much there is out there. And so having these conversations to turn to and having like a quote friend online whose values you trust can really be so much more therapeutic than even talking to a buddy, because sometimes you don't want to share everything with a friend. You don't feel like venting, or it's just not in your nature to be that person. So you can utilize podcasts as your therapy, as your source of comfort, and as your education. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A, but I have one last question for you guys. I would say, like, for anyone that's starting out getting into digital media or podcasting, especially for women, what's one piece of advice that maybe you wish you would have had at the beginning?
I'm gonna give this advice just to women in general, because I have had so many careers, and and I say this to everyone. There is no dream that's too big. There is no, I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee. My brother used to say, how did you become the West Coast editor of GQ? You're like from some redneck from Tennessee, which is totally not true. I was very sophisticated, but that's my brother. But my point is that everything I've done, whether it's this podcast or creating television shows or being a stylist or being a fashion designer, that's my dream. I'm gonna get that dream. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna decide what it is, laser focus what it is. When I met this woman, it was so clear to me that was something that had to happen in the world. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get an agent, which I did. I'm gonna sell this, put a pitch together, which I did. I'm gonna go out there with her, which I did. And then we created this platform. So it's really about having the confidence to go for it. And don't be afraid to DM me, to DM you, to reach out. The girl that's gonna reach out to me 5 times that wants to sit with me as your mentor, I'm gonna do that.
Completely.
Because that girl has reached out to me, or boy, or whoever it is. Yeah. It's about like being laser focused with your dream, whatever it is, and then backing it up with hard work and never giving up.
I'm gonna give a few mantras because I'm big
Please.
on quotes.
Yes.
The first one, progress over perfection. And the second one, comfort zone is where your dreams die. The first one for me, so I shared my weight loss journey through a Transform episode. Y'all, I recorded that 1.5 years before it came out.
No way.
I re-listened to it. I'm like, this is not it. I would send it to friends when I felt like I could trust them, and they would come back crying, feeling so seen in their own journey. But I'm like, I said too many times, and I said here, and it's only 32 minutes. Aren't podcasts supposed to be an hour long? Like, there were so many things in my brain that were really coming down to being perfect. And all I needed to do was trust in myself and follow through with the progress. And I still get messages to this day of people listening to that 32-minute full of ums and likes of me doing something so out of my comfort zone and receiving so much in return. So if something feels like it's out of your comfort zone, do it, because anything that feels like it's within your comfort zone is not really your dream.
That's so valuable. I would say for me, I think the biggest thing has been to just be authentically myself, and to, yes, be aware of what's going on around me, and to be empowered and educated, but also to try to keep a little bit of blinders on so that I can maintain my authenticity and be having the conversations that I want to talk about, instead of feeling pressure to talk about something that everybody else is wanting to talk about. I launched my podcast as kind of like an interview style podcast where I would interview experts and people I trusted. And I realized that while I do love doing that, I felt like what people wanted to hear was just hear me speak, hear Timmy and I go on a date night, hear my sisters and I talk about our grief. And so I think it's really about tuning into you, and like we just said, tuning into what makes you the most you, and then putting that out there.